Hi, got a few good topics to talk about in this video and a little bit of information as to the ongoing climate, pole shift, stuff like that. Big thanks to those two people that supported the channel over the Christmas period, and I think I should just briefly mention that it is, well, I've never known it like this. The support for the channel's almost dropped off completely. The only way I can continue in doing the things I do is with a little bit of help from you guys. So, I just wanted to mention that. I have noticed this dwindling of the, support for the channel. Not that the subscribers aren't increasing, but anyhow, guys, put that aside. Even though it is important. I said just before the new year that we were in a specific time right now, and some of you will agree on that. You've been following probably the same things that I have with regards to, well, let's face it, everything that's important. You've probably noticed a change. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the economy, and I want to show you a few facts on that subject. You've also, if you've been following the channel, very familiar with how the climate is changing. Some refer to it as climate chaos. So we'll talk about that as well. But there is a third as well, and equally important, and that is the the behaviour of people. And it's no surprise when your environment changes around you and your stability changes with regards to how you obtain money to participate in a monetary system, then people are going to react to those two things. They're probably the most two important things in anybody's life. And my advice right now for anyone in the UK, just before what is about to take place happens, would be get yourself a gun. And yes, you can still get guns in the UK. I would get yourself a gun, and I'd do that as soon as you possibly can, because it takes a month or two for that to get sorted out. Get yourself a shotgun license and buy yourself a shotgun, because if the global economy system tanks out, right, and you've got a gun, you'll be in a much better position to protect your family, because if this system tanks out, and it's going to, you don't have to take my word on that. By no means am I an economic expert, but do you think people are going to go to work in the police force if they're not going to get paid? Do you think they're going to risk their lives with angry mobs on the streets that have lost everything? There's a famous saying from Gerald Celente that when people lose everything, they lose it, and they will lose it, guys. And we couldn't be any closer to that taking place right now. So, if you've not thought about owning a gun before, perhaps now is a good choice, or time, should I say, to possibly take those thoughts a little bit more serious. If you haven't got a gun, then there are several other things that you can do to use to protect yourself. And let's face it, the further away you are from possible, injury by a zombie, because that is how I completely see people reacting to what is about to come, then the better off you'll be. You don't want to be scrapping in your 40s and your 50s and in your 60s with someone that's probably a lot more fitter than you and can take you out a lot quicker than what you could then. You might think, right, that what the hell are you talking? What am I talking about here? Just think about it. Society is about to go tits up, guys. It really is. What you've got, and I want to get some facts here. Let's start with the facts then. Let's not just talk about them. Let me show you a few things, right, of just what I've been, keeping an eye on. And you'll see then that if I present facts, that it's not just speculation what I'm talking about. So, this is the UK figures from the Office for national statistics, and you can see the gross domestic product has dropped another 0.1% now from 0.5% to 0.4%. The consumer price index is at 0.1%, and the unemployment rate, which is a joke, right? I know it states it's 5.2%, but it's a lot higher than that, and they know it, and they're not recording exactly how high it is, because you only got to look at two things on there, and that is the consumer price index, and that represents how much people are spending in the UK, right? And I'm going to get to the United States in a minute. And if nothing's being manufactured, which is represented by the gross domestic product, right, and nothing is being sold, then how can there be such a demand for jobs? The workforce. How can that figure 5.2% be accurate? The thing is, and we'll look at the dry bulk index, right, because I want to point out something. Let's do it. So you've probably seen charts like this before, the Baltic Dry Index. But what you can clearly see is that from 2008 over here, it was at nearly 9,000. And since then, till 2014, this chart, by the way, doesn't include 2015, because if you want to know what the number is right now, it's below 500. It has tanked 95%. What does this represent? This represents cargo, global cargo around the world, and if people are not sending things around the world, that is because people simply aren't buying. And when you look at the OMS report, it's the same for anyone else, anyone around the world, are going through the same as what we are in the UK and the United States, Canada, Australia, etc., Europe. It affects everybody. And as you can see, that when the market collapsed back in 2008, it never recovered. And this isn't going to recover, because what is going to happen next is a global economic catastrophe with regards to the economics of this world and the way we do business. We're seeing it right now in Europe. As we knew when they introduced bail-ins to Greece, they would be setting precedents for the rest of the countries, and they're going to start introducing bail-ins for Europe right now. And this is going to be something that we're going to see possibly in other countries around the world. Only yesterday, well, let's just say the beginning of the trading on the stock markets, right, we heard that China had to intervene in the markets, and then later on in the day shut the markets down because of the staggering decrease across a variety of stocks. So they shut the market down, and they've noticed that it started to affect the United States stock markets as well as European and UK. This is getting ready to happen now. Why do I say that people are going to end up behaving like zombies? Well, can you imagine when you look back at that property that you've worked for most of your life, still probably are working to pay it off, and realise it has zero wealth? Because that is exactly what's going to happen. What we're going to see probably this year is the government going into people's bank accounts and stealing sums of money. Now it will start off high probably bench levels, and we'll see, like they did in Greece, reducing the levels, right, to a point where your own money is no longer accessible to you, and they set a limit on what you can use. What you've got to realise, guys, is that these governments are organised syndicates of crime. They're the mob. What you've got to realise is, you might be a good law-abiding citizen, right? But these people that run countries and take other countries as well as their own to war to steal off other countries are nothing but criminals. And it was a temptation that was just too great for them, because they knew they could take over a country by running the government. They did, and they knew that once they got their hands on the public taxpayers' funds, that they could practically write out a check for anything they wanted for themselves and them friends of theirs. And this is exactly what they've done. Now, I know it's a bit of a change of subject, so let's just get on to it and get it out of the way. So, moving on to this topic of the Hammonds in Oregon, you're probably thinking, well, why should somebody from the United Kingdom's view on this be relevant? Well, it's up to you. I just think what this guy is doing is the right thing. For one, when are you going to draw the line, and when will you act after you've crossed the line? Now, first of all, what people are saying about this guy is a bit unfair. They're saying that he's stolen a federal building, and there's lots of things about this story. They're saying if it had been Muslims that had done it, they'd have been straight in there, killed a lot of them. If it had been black people, they'd have been straight in there, and vice versa. Put some of this stuff aside, because I'll just give you my opinion on what I've seen so far, right? We've seen the BLM literally forcing ranchers out of business in the United States, across most of the states. And this guy himself, Bundy, was affected by a similar thing that created the standoff. Most of you that are familiar with the story will know what I'm talking about. But what do I mean by what he's done is right? He's drawn the line in the stand as far as I'm concerned, and he's not prepared to back down from it. What he's done is no different to what the BLM are doing, right? They're stealing land. He's come in and said, this federal building will now be in our control, and it will stay in our control for some several years, and we're going to put back all the work that you've done. We're going to resolve it with getting this state back to a profitable state as it was before the BLM come in there and did what they did. So, some people might look at this story and think, it's wrong, but it's right, because the BLM are crooks themselves. You've got to realise this government organisation, this federal organisation, are nothing but crooks themselves, and they're stealing land. And what Bundy's done here is just done the same thing. He's took it back off them. But when I say he's smart, he's done it in a very smart way, and I believe he's set the example. What do I mean by that? Well, he set an example for how things should be done in other states, as far as I'm concerned, right, with regards to using the military to, put a stop to the way these authorities are just completely getting out of hand. And they're getting out of hand. They don't even, play fair anymore. You can't take them to court because all the courts swear some form of allegiance to, senators and whatever. If you've, like myself, challenged local authorities, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's stuffed in this country. You can't get justice in this country, and if you're poor, you do not stand a living chance of getting justice. And it's the same over there in the States. It was smart using the militia, and what it proved is that the authorities will back down to a reckonable force, and this is, through standing together, sticking together, and working together as a collective, as opposed to individuals, because individuals, as we've seen what have just happened to Hammond, if you are on your own, you will get mauled by these people. Fancy putting a 73-year-old gentleman in a jail for 5 years for lighting a fire. Or actually, did he light the fire? Did he, was it not him that put the fire out? Was it not caused through several lightning strikes, and he lit a backfire that prevented this fire spreading even further? Shouldn't that have been rewarded, not criminalised? And the other thing is they used the term, didn't they, terrorist, which, as you know, if you're in the UK, we're starting to see the police use this for more and more things. They don't even, on suspicion alone, they can detain someone for, 80 days? Now, you see, and I've heard that police have threatened people on minor offences if they didn't do exactly what they wanted them to do, then they could change this to a terrorist charge, and therefore that would be the resulting actions, i.e., 80 days in jail, and then it's just 80 days off your life. But with regards to this, they've done the exact same thing. We all know the difference between terrorists and non-terrorists. It's just, it's a shame. But I'm completely in agreement with what this guy has done and the way he's gone about it. I think it's very smart. I think it's the right thing to do, and he's done it at the right time as well. Because if you don't make a stand now and you wait longer, then you're only going to be finding yourself in a worse situation to make a stand. If there are people that understand what I'm saying and they've got anything in them, they'll probably be standing or keeping a watchful eye on this as it plays out. And I would hope that they would be on the side of this guy as opposed to on the side of the other crooks. What I'm talking about is the BLM, the feds, etc. What you've seen is that on 2 occasions now, when the military have got involved, the feds have almost backed off. They did certainly on the Bundy Ranch, and they certainly haven't gone in and removed this crowd of people claiming to be military, is it? We've not seen any action yet, so I believe the reason why they won't react to this situation is because it could turn out very, very negative for the United States government. If they do, they could spark literally a civil war from this point on, and it's the only way. You know yourself, guys, it's the only way you're going to change something. If it had waited any longer, I believe, as most people do over in the States, that the guns would be grabbed, and therefore, as well as it being an infringement on the Second Amendment, it would also put them in a lesser situation where they could do something about a tyrannical government. Is it, first of all, a tyrannical government? I don't know any government in the world that isn't. Talk about dictators. Look no further than the UK. We've got one in Parliament right now who is a dictator by every means and standard. David Cameron is trying to reduce. He's said it. Not trying to. He has actually come out on, and it's recorded on media, mainstream media, that if he got elected for the second term, that he would scrap human rights, and that is exactly what he's trying to do now. That is exactly what a dictator does. I've said this many times. I've even written letters to our MPs and the Houses of Lords, asking them what a member of the public could do legally if they found themselves under the rule of a dictator. And it's no rocket science why they never replied to it. It is completely out of hand. The way the economy is right now is completely what you'd expect it to be when the wrong people run an economy. For them. And what we're seeing is that these people run the economy for themselves. We're not just seeing that, right? We're also seeing them being immune from any legal prosecution, even in situations where they're banged to rights and guilty. And what I'm talking about is what we know of already has taken place with regards to HSBC laundering drug money. No one went to jail for it. It's getting out of hand. We've seen the BBC, David's ex-employees, David Cameron's ex-employees, make up stories about Assad in Syria gassing his own people. And most people still today, even in this country and most parts of the world, believe that Assad did gas his own people, like the BBC said. But what most people wouldn't have found out would have been the truth with regards to that, and now the BBC overlaid voices on those people in that report, because it wasn't gas that came out that woman's voice, out her mouth. It was something else. What we're seeing is dirty tricks played all around, and when you have governments, worldly governments like this, behave in this manner, then is it you know is it a wonder that the mess is the way it is? I don't know. A friend of mine told me a statistic the other day with regards to the United States spending what they did on the F-35 fighter jet. Basically, the statistics came out that all the homeless people in America could have been brought by the government a £600,000 house, a $600,000 house, if they had have put the money into that. But they never. They put it in the F-35 fighter jet, and that tells you what the government think about their own people. You see, we all had this image of governments doing the right thing. I mean, in this country, they are servants of the public, but it's all upside down now. We're seeing, and in the United States, it's all upside down now, and that's because corruption has become so rife that we've got what we've got, and it is people like this guy here that have said enough is enough. You're destroying people's lives. You're destroying people's means of obtaining money so that they can participate in your monetary system. You're not offering, at the same time, these governments aren't offering any alternative to this monetary system. What they want is your labour for next to nothing now. And that's why they do things such as minimum wage. But what most people don't realise is when they set a minimum wage, they set precedents to every employee, right? That so long as they paid this amount of money, then legally they could not be in the wrong for doing that. And eventually everyone's going to end up on minimum wage, and that's why, the economy is tanking like it is. These things all have an effect on each other, and it's really hard sometimes to put them together to obtain a pattern out of them, to get the bigger picture, because there's so many variables in everything in which goes on in these days. It's almost like trying to predict the weather with all the variables involved in that, unless you start picking up on key variables that do certainly, in the mechanisms in which they work, have effects which and in that way then you can predict more about what's going on. But I just want to end this video, guys, with a quick look at the climate over the northern hemisphere on the computer modeling program that I use, because I just want to bring your attention to something that I said around 12 months ago, and it's becoming more apparent now. So let's go and have a flick over onto that. So I think this guy, first of all, before I leave this subject, I think this guy needs support. I think he needs more of his own people behind him, and he's not a criminal, and certainly that poor old gentleman that's gone to jail the other day, Hammond, 73 years old. I mean, if they just sentenced that man to death, how many years more will he live? Will he come out alive? It's a real shame. I mean, they have really, despite the fact of double jeopardy, right? They've been very heavy-handed with that guy, and I don't think he should have been punished. He should have been actually rewarded. But these people are out to steal his land. They're out to steal others, and as far as that's concerned, that's what we'll say on the matter. Let's move on to this climate then. So here we are on the climate modelling program. Now, you can recall from a few videos back, earlier on in 2014 it was, that I suggested that the weather was really showing us where the magnetic anomalies lie right over the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. I said that where the weaker magnetic fields would be exactly where they were on this climate in the warmer parts of the Arctic Circle. If you look down here at 2.4 degrees Celsius, we can see that this is well into the Arctic Circle, about 72 degrees north. It shouldn't be there, but this is the tear in between the region of the North Pole where it is breaking, and it is breaking, guys. And I can show you on the magnetic anomaly chart where you can see in magnetic field strength that we're seeing a similar picture. In fact, I will, just for those that haven't seen the two and compared the two. And I suggested back then that if we just watch this region increase further north, we'll know that that is a sign that those two poles are beginning to split. And that's exactly what's going to happen. I also said that even though it wasn't very clear on the Antarctic region, we still do see cooler temperatures in the Antarctic region, and that is an indication of where the stronger magnetic fields lie, as they do over the northern hemisphere. What I'm saying is here is, this tear of warmer air moving into the north or into the Arctic region is increasing, just as I said it would, not quite a year ago. And I said that we could, if we didn't have any magnetic data that was freely being given us from Swarm and their downs, because they've allowed only up to a level 2 now, not a level 1A. They allow it up to 2 now, but they still don't give you daily charts and daily information on how the magnetic fields are changing, and at the 60 nanotesla field strengths. So I said that even though they're not giving us that information and that data, we could still follow what the magnetic north was doing by just looking at these weather modelling charts, as long as they're up to date. And we can, because what we're seeing is this tear increase, widen, as we would expect, and increase further up north. And what will eventually happen is that those two north poles will split, and so will the southern poles split. Because it might come to news to people that they think, we've surely got one north pole. Yeah, it is one north pole at the moment. And if you was to get your compass, where your compass at point right now is exactly around this region, and that is in between the two poles. And the reason why that is because they haven't parted yet. And your compass, when they do part, will keep its fixation on the stronger of the two. And I predicted what we would have when they do split, in any case, in a short period of time, perhaps months, is a magnetic reconnection of their antipoles, because we know antipoles are attracted by their opposites. And once they split, what happens is you'll have two north poles together and they'll push each other away. The two southern poles will do the same, and we'll end up with another magnetic reconfiguration somewhere on this Earth. And and that's where we are. Let's show you the magnetic pattern, and you can see that they look very much the same. It's a bit like Batman's emblem. The shape of this. If you look at it, the warmer part of the Earth is the bat. In the distress signal that Batman would use. Just don't ask me why I haven't said that, but it does look a little bit like that. So, like I was saying, you can see where the warmer region is. Let me just get a better marker so you can see where I'm actually referring to. So this warmer region then on the climate chart, you could see on this chart as being an area of weaker magnetism. If you look at the scale on the bottom in nanoteslas, you can see where the stronger field lines are here on this map are the same, standing out only, but in colder temperatures. So like I said, the further that warmer region spreads will be an indication that the centre of these two northern poles are getting closer to breaking apart from each other, and when that happens, we'll be in the magnetic reversal. So guys, Had it been going back and not progressing this warmer front into the Arctic region, my theory probably wouldn't have been accurate, but it's starting to look that way, isn't it? Yeah, I'm just wondering how long it will be before other scientists do pick up on the weather anomaly or the climate anomaly and the magnetic anomaly and realise that they're not in the same region of this Earth. For instance, the coolest region on this Earth are where the poles are, and obviously you have a magnetic north and a magnetic south. The other thing we do have in those regions are rotational axes, and it wouldn't surprise me that in some circumstances during magnetic reversals rotational axis shifts, because it is, after all, in the same region, and I believe that it's never been there for coincidental purposes. So we really are running, as far as I'm concerned, the gauntlet. I mean, we couldn't have anything worse chasing us at this present time with regards to humanity. Not only is it possible that a third world war could break out wider than what it has already, and I say that because, as I did in the last video, how many countries are bombing Syria right now? It's a world war. You've got countries sanctioning each other on trade, and it's only affecting the little guy, the individuals, as it always does. It's never the likes of David Cameron that put on a pack and grab a rifle and go to the front line. No, he'll be eating a 3-course, meal in some lavish restaurant whilst he initiates his army to go and do his dirty work for him. And it isn't even for David Cameron, let's face it, we all know now, don't we? Excuse me. It's for the lobbyists, these criminals that sell guns to tyrants, people that are the worst offenders of humanity, and the mess just continues, and you know it as well as I do. But we're close, I feel, to something really big happening, and it's now more than ever a time to keep your eye on what's going on. We're on the fringe of going through some very big earthly changes geologically with regards to this magnetic anomaly and the climate chaos. The global economics are in tatters and falling to bits, and governments are close to losing their control on people, which I don't think might be a bad idea. If they did, I think that they're the reason why we are in this situation financially, in any case. And like I say, it's just very close, I believe. How close is anyone's best guess, but it's not far away, is it? It's not far away from collapsing. And like I said, if you're noticing the attitudes of people, then it's a no wonder their attitudes are the way they are. It's because they just simply are getting close to the point where they can't take any more of it. Once you lose everything, you lose it. So with that, guys, it would be nice to have some more support for the channel, and the link is down there for those that would like to, support some of the work that's going on. I mean, I'm working. I'll have to get the video camera out again so I can show you some of the stuff that I've been working on. We've got at the moment, to my right of me, a hard drive motor out of a computer rigged up to a controller, and that is running 4 magnets at high speed, and I'm looking into the frequency of tone that it generates when another magnet comes into contact with it. It's almost like a high pitch tone. So, I think you'd be interested in having a look at that, as well as other things. We've now got the data logger sent off to a friend who's going to have a go at debugging the SD card for us. And as soon as, and there's something else happening about that. Well, I'll tell you, as we, get to that point where that is, more possible. There's no point mentioning it now. It might not happen, but we'll see. And other than that, we're doing what we normally do. We're looking for alternative source of energy. Will it make a difference? I don't know. With the way things are, you can't give up, can you? I suppose. But yeah, I won't babble on. I'll show you more of those things in the next video, perhaps. But I think it's a good idea to talk to other people about this. Your friends, your family. I know if you're like my family, they think you're a nutter when you go on about these things. But it'll come to them, I suppose, when they're ready to hear it. And you never know. It could be a better time now to talk to them, because they might well be experiencing some of the things with regards to what we've talked about. So I just don't believe you should just give up. You keep going. But guys, like I say, there's a link down there. If you can support the channel, that's great. It needs a bit more than what is being done. I want to thank those guys, particularly those two that did over the Christmas period support it. And there's nothing else to say other than what I usually do, and that is, enjoy it while you can, because it's not going to last forever. And I'll say what I always do: bye for now.